Prepare yourself. It's Big News Wednesday. We are joined, as always, on Big News Wednesday by the host of The Watch List, Jayar Jackson. Jayar, welcome back.
What's going on, John Adirola? I'm glad.
Well, what's going on?
Glad things are working out for you this morning. I'm glad that the cameras and the power are working for you this morning. It must be just coincidence.
It must be. So Jayar didn't get a full show. The important thing, though, is that I might. So everybody is scrambling all over trying to fix things here and remotely. So normally, if you're new to the damage report, so Big News Wednesday is because on Wednesdays we have too much news generally to fit into a show. In this case, we had too much show to fit into a power grid. And so everything has just been breaking over and over again from last night to today. But things look like they're working out okay. So assuming that JR's dog Sprocket doesn't chew on any cables or anything, we should be okay, I think.
He's generally a good guy. He's generally a good guy.
He is, actually. I took a walk with him. Anyway, with that said, the show could die at any moment. So you might not have as much time as you think to hit that like button. I would do it right now, just in case. And we're going to jump into the news in a minute or two, and we're going to keep going until we are electrically shadow banned by the U.S. government. So everyone, hold on to your butts. We're going to launch into an awesome show. Hit the like button, yada, yada. Send us comments. We'll respond during our breaks, which might happen. With all that said, JR, are you ready to do this thing?
Is it okay if I say no?
No, I need your help today. Of all days, you have to say yes.
I'm here.
Anyway. Okay, then with that, let's jump into the insanity. The country has been focused for several weeks now on the immediate pressing task of protecting kids. But there's a bit of a miscommunication. When I say that, I mean protecting them from mass shootings. The right is focused on something else entirely. Take a look at what a state rep in Texas, the site of the Uvalde shooting, had to say about kids. He has a law that he believes is necessary to protect children from, quote, perverted adults, citing a viral video of children attending a drag show in Dallas on Saturday. Here is that video.
About what they say, we do it our way. Y'all them know the truth, boys shaking their boots, cause they know they get fun like wasabi. We're sweet like sushi, passion of the Monica Bellucci.
Now, in case we have any conservatives watching, I think that we should have a moment of silence for them to collect themselves, to once again be able to interface with society, because that video is enough to just destroy anyone. Just tears streaming down your face. You don't know how to accept the country anymore. Look, is that for every kid? I don't know. I think that it's probably up to the parents, but especially so soon after the Uvalde shooting, for state reps in Texas to be like, that is the crisis that we have to deal with, is utter madness. But he's doubling down. Brian Slatton had to say this. The events of this past weekend were horrifying. Again, he's talking about the drag show, saying, and show a disturbing trend in which perverted adults are obsessed with sexualizing young children. As a father of 2 young children, I would never take my children to a drag show. I promised my voters that I would stand up for their values and fight to protect Texas kids. From drag queens, not from AR-15s, obviously. Again, he's not going to take his kids to a drag show. I have no doubt, JR, that he is speaking accurately there. I am sure he will not take them to a drag show or a museum or a play or any kind of art. Honestly, screw that. We should never expand our boundaries. We should never see anything that we haven't already seen, experience anything we haven't already experienced. This is what they're focused on.
It's pretty straightforward. And it's like this with the books and stuff too. Hey, if you don't want your children to read something, look at something, watch something, there's this thing that's called parenting. You can be like, hey, Johnny, let's not go to that. And then you know what you do? You don't go to that. And you move on with your lives. So if you want to complain about parents who do take their children to this, complain to the parents that want to take their children to this and then get slapped in the face for dealing in someone else's business. It has nothing to do with you. So if you don't like it, that's fine. Don't like it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why this has to become everyone has to listen to the biggest complainers in the country that actually don't care about that. Which I have more points on that in a minute, but I want you to
Mhm.
continue, John. My bad.
Yeah, because
I'm still in hosting my show mode, so I'm just talking too much already. Go
exactly.
ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
He didn't get all of that energy out before our show. Okay, so what you were saying right there was if you don't want to go, or if you don't want your kids to go, just don't go. That's you sort of say, like, you are expressing what the Republicans have pretended they believe, that it should be up to the parents in other areas. Let's be clear, that is not their position in this case. He wants to outlaw them being able to go. So all that stuff about parents choosing how their kids are educated and socialized and all that, no, that was only for the books thing in Florida, I guess. Screw that. You cannot take your kids to this sort of thing. You can't have a drag queen wearing 75% more clothing than any kid will see on someone at a beach. We can't do that. You legally will not be allowed to do that. And it isn't just Brian Slayton. Some of the highest profile wackadoos on the right are big fans of this. Representative Marjorie Greene said it should be illegal to take children into drag queen shows and strip clubs, and there should be no federal funding for any school that intentionally confuses children about gender and sexuality. Any teacher or school employee caught doing so should be fired and lose all benefits. That is, of course, I don't even know if it's fair to call it a straw man argument. It's more like a straw-brained argument. No school is intentionally confusing kids about gender and sexuality. That's your job, Marjorie Greene. You're confusing people about the obvious, indisputable fact that there is a broad range of gender identities that exist not only now in the United States, but in every other society on Earth, and always have for as long as there have been societies on Earth. You're confused about that. That's your issue. You can deal with that. I'm trying to protect you from putting your issues onto another generation of kids. Lauren Boebert says, take your children to church, not drag bars. And that makes some sense, because in these drag bars, you might be endangered by seeing a drag queen or hearing Madonna or something. At a church, all you will potentially have to deal with is a well-documented, indisputable trend of sexual abuse and exploitation of kids by church officials. There's a report even just recently about the Southern Baptist leaders who covered up sex abuse. And I got news for you. You can look all over the world, and churches have been a place where a lot of bad stuff has happened to kids, Jayar.
Consistently. So again, I'm glad you brought the Southern Baptist leaders covering up, because I feel like there was this differentiation. People like to think, oh, that was just Catholic priests that were doing that. And by the way, it was rampant, and it was for decades. That's church. That's a major church that many people go to. Why are we excluding that? Either way, even though we excluded that, now we also have Baptist church doing the same thing. It's weird how people within power have children in their control abuse it and also abuse those children at the same time. It's almost like there's bad folks, and maybe no matter where you take them or what you want to think you're exposing them to, there could be a problem because there's just bad people. Now, by the way, since we're talking about outlawing things where kids get sexualized because these Democrats and these libs want to sexualize your children, we were going to mention this before, because I've been to Lakers games, I've been to any basketball game. You know what happens at timeouts? About 15 to 20 scantily clad women run out in the middle of the floor and do a dance, very similar to that one we saw at that drag show. And they've got the same kinds of clothing on, and there's suggestive music on. And you know what happens? Grown men in the audience look very closely, and they go, oh my God, am I going to see booty? Am I going to see breasts?
No,
This is going to be wonderful.
JR.
And you know who's sitting next to
No.
them at those games? Children. Oh my God, they're being exposed. They're being
That's not-
sexualized.
Not the experience I've had. I've often felt that nowhere is the cultural divide more on evidence than at sporting events, because when those scantily clad cheerleaders come out, all of the good Christian men, oh, I would never, Bobby, no, don't see the booty, don't see it clap. Yeah, that's what the Christians do when that stuff comes. No, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
100%, bro. There's more than that. By the way, I remember when Hooters started. Hooters, the restaurant. There's pictures of this. Look it up anywhere where people take their young boys, is what we see, into Hooters to stand next to these girls wearing short shorts and tight shirts, showing off again, ass and boobs. And you know what's happening? They're taking pictures next to them. They're putting T-shirts on them to have a scantily clad body on top of that. All of that. My son and I drive to school every morning, and we listen to ESPN radio. You know what happens in the commercial breaks?
No, I don't.
Is your penis working? You know what? If you do this penis straightening exercise, you can have better sex. Hey, if you take this pill, you can have sex on every day that you want. If you take the third pill, then maybe your wife will stop complaining about how you're bad in the bedroom. Oh, hey, men, is your penis still working? How about your penis? Your penis, your penis. And I have to explain to my son. So there's this thing when some guys get older and they can no longer get their penis in the right position for sex. So I have to explain that to my kid. But for some reason, this drag show is the problem. Get out of here.
I did not know about the penis straightening
Constant. There's a
exercises.
penis straightening
Are they?
tool where
Is
you
it
have to go to your
pull-ups?
doctor and make sure it's not going to the wrong direction.
Oh God. Oh God. It's hit 3 o'clock. No. Yeah, that's our culture, and they're totally fine
Sorry.
with everything that you
Sorry.
just said. I'm not fine with much of what you just said, but they're fine with everything that you just said. It's
Boycott.
ridiculous. This is not what is getting kids killed. But as always, everything out of right-wingers' mouths is intended to be a distraction so that you will not challenge the status quo on the economic dominance of the 1%, the status quo where the gun manufacturers, the gun lobby has gotten basically everything that they want. They crave the status quo because in the status quo, they have won and continue to win. All they need to do is run out the clock on their lives. That's all it is. They're just trying to maintain a position of wealth and power until they inevitably collapse. That's it. And it is our challenge to fight back against that, to break through on all this BS. Now, let's turn to an even worse aspect of this. The demonization of drag queens, of the LGBTQ community. I wouldn't call it subtle necessarily with the way that Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Greene are doing. However, it can get worse. Take a look at this video.
What does God say is the answer, is the solution for the homosexual in 2022, here in the New Testament, here in the book of Romans, that they are worthy of death? These people should be put to death. Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with the crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches. That's what the Bible says. You don't like it, you don't like God's word, because that is what God says.
Yeah, Men in America will do all of whatever that was rather than go to therapy. That's what we're learning. That is Christian preacher Dylan Oz of Steadfast Baptist Church in Texas, notably. Of course, Texas has serious actual issues. He's not interested in any of those. He's not aggrieved by the mass shootings, the violence, the fact that kids are getting mowed down with literal weapons of war. What he's worried about is that people in the LGBTQ community exist at all. They just exist. They just have their lives. And he may not understand their lives. He may not know them. But wherever they are, off living their lives, they deserve to be hunted down and executed. And that apparently is not the first time that at his church they've endorsed execution, not just as a tool of the state to control the population, but to eliminate entire populations. What he called for was genocide against the LGBTQ community. He chose to do it, obviously, during Pride. I mean, he's just the sickest of a very sick movement there, Jayar. And what he did, I guess is legal. We're supposed to assume that a guy who would preach that they should all be executed won't ever take it upon himself to do that. That is not a warning sign of violence, we're supposed to believe.
It's who would ever know that someone would act on this? I said God's vengeance. I didn't say line them up and then shoot them in the back of the head. Does God do that? Does Jesus get the gun? Who's the one who pulls the trigger? And by the way, since these executioners are killing indiscriminately killing anyone that they think is disgusting, why do they have to shoot them in the back of the head? This looks like a cowardly way about murdering someone. Why don't you shoot them in the face? You can see their face, see their eyes right before it happens. Or maybe you'd be haunted by that. These guys are such cowards. But again, if this actually happened, they'd be the first ones laying up under the pews, afraid of someone coming in and doing exactly what they're saying should be done to other folks because they think it's just nasty. And by the way, again, you guys notice this? We just talked about drag shows and stuff. Whenever it's women doing these dances, or say it's lesbian women, they have no problem with that. You know, they're always talking about trans men and then drag queens. and then, oh, you're really a guy. They never talk about how someone's trans and they're a man. And then we go, oh, you know what? You know what you actually have? You have breasts, guy. You have a vagina,
true.
you guy. They never
That is
talk
true.
about that because their discomfort is about whether or not they can have sex with this person. That's what their thought process goes to.
Yeah, look, it's like we always say. We have been deluded by a few decades now of being told that supposedly it's liberals and leftists who are like fragile and snowflakes and everything. No, their weakness is getting us killed. Their fundamental physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual weakness, the fact that they are broken and refuse to acknowledge it and thus can't fix themselves, is getting us all killed. They break down in the face of anyone's life that is unlike their own. They cannot for a second tolerate the fact that there are people who have a different religion or a different sexual orientation or a different gender identity. And it's not just that they want to wall themselves off from it. They're not interested in learning. They don't have the courage to have curiosity. It's that they want to kill everything that they don't understand. That is what weakness is. They bleat about betas to distract from the fact that they are fundamentally broken. They are weak in every way that people can be weak. And it's across all of their movement, but particularly the conservative men are fundamentally broken, and they cloak it by attacking outsiders, by trying to convince others to join their movement. Are you watching this, America? Do you want to be a part of this group? Some people do. Now, look, the guy that we showed you, the pastor, he goes on even farther because, of course, you can't go 2 minutes in America talking about something political without making it about pedophiles. So, of course, that's where he's going to turn.
You want to know why we say that all homosexuals are pedophiles? And let me make that very clear. All homosexuals are pedophiles. And people say, well, what about all the straight people that molest children? They're I don't care what you call them. All homosexuals are pedophiles. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that every single homosexual that's alive right now has committed that act with a child already. Because it could be that they haven't had the opportunity yet, and they will at some point later in their life. This is why we need to put these people to death through the proper channels of the government.
Okay. Is he not merciful? Through the proper channels. What he is saying is, no, I'm not a monster. I'm not being barbaric. I'm saying that the government should set up a system, a legal system, and presumably a system of transporting people to maybe places where they can efficiently be murdered in mass numbers. That's what I want. I'm not barbaric. I just want the state to murder, what, tens of millions of people? 50 million people? I don't know. Something real. It's going to take the state. It's going to take industry. It's going to take a machine, really, to murder all of the people that I want to be murdered. And meanwhile, he's pretending that it's about protecting the kids. It's they're all going to do it. They all want to do it. And even straight people who molest a kid of the opposite gender becomes, in his mind, gay by doing that. And across all that, Jayar, I'm just going to say what I think many people in the audience are thinking. When you look at that guy's face, would you leave him alone with your kid for 5 minutes, honestly? When you look at his, like, I would not allow a kid, not a kid that I cared about, not an animal that I cared about, to be in a room alone with that monster for 2 consecutive seconds.
Yeah, again, the focus is on the fact that it's gay men he's concerned with. He can't get his mind around anything else because that's what he's obsessed with. Let's keep it real. This is what keeps him up at night. He's thinking about gay men and what maybe might be enjoyable to do with them. I don't know. I'm not sure what his obsession is, but he definitely can't stop thinking about gay men. Because again, we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community, right? So, there's women involved in that. It's really weird how he doesn't see that over and over and over again. And by the way, this is a bit of, again, we're talking about how people get groomed and our society gets into this thought process of, so we need to have the state sanctioned murder of certain folks. This guy is straight up the person who's pushing for that. So if we're trying to blur the lines between religion and our actual government being run, this is one of those reasons behind it. They like to say there's no separation of church and state because they want these types of belief systems that get preached by crazy people like him to cross over into our government policies and agendas. And that's exactly what he's proposing right there. In order to have this kind of belief system, you have to blur that line and actually eliminate it so that Now, crazies like him that want to murder people based off who they are can get sanctioned by the state.
Yeah,
Kind of sucks.
it's insane. Like he has a position of authority. He has people who come to him to learn what is moral and good. We're monsters on the left. We're radicals. We're too extreme. We can't be seen by mass numbers of people. It would be too dangerous. But people like him, I mean, he's a good Christian.
I'm sorry, John. There's a Warren Jeffs movie that's coming out. I think it's probably this week on Netflix. It goes into details of what he did. He married like 78 girls and women. None of those were boys. Is that okay? Because he raped them, destroyed their lives. Is that okay?
That they were fine with Roy Moore. I mean, after all, he was only going for 14-year-old girls. So I guess that was acceptable. They don't. No, there's not going to be any sermons about that. Come on. Anyway, with that said, I'm going to have to read that. Okay. Heads up to the director. I want to just go to one last bit that Brett produced. I want to make sure that we get it. So if you can, we're going to do graphics 8 and 9, and then jump down to 14 and on. So apologies for that. This is my bad. But Lauren Boebert wants you to believe that the biggest threat right now to your kids' drag shows in Texas, not guns, nothing like that, not the oncoming environmental catastrophe, nothing like that. She wants you to focus on the LGBTQ community. That is how she is spending her Pride Month. Now, of course, when she is saying that the members of this community are groomers, that they're preying on kids, I will remind you that in terms of her and her husband's relationship with kids, well, her husband, as you probably know by now, exposed himself to people in a bowling alley. One was a minor. Maybe that bothers her on the inside. Maybe that eats away at her soul. I don't know. She's never expressed any issue with the fact that he did that. The fact that she thinks it's awesome to just surround her kids with as many guns as possible for fun Christmas photos like this, that's totally safe for kids. Because, of course, as we know, guns pose no danger to children. It's drag queens. They're the ones who are, of course, dangerous. That said, if you out there are in her district and you think maybe we should go in a different direction, she's still running. She can potentially be voted out. And in fact, they have sort of a novel plan to get her out of office. We'll see if it works. Thousands of voters have apparently recently left the Democratic Party in Western Colorado, some as part of a grassroots effort to defeat Lauren Boebert in her upcoming primary election. For the last few years, Colorado's open primary system has allowed unaffiliated voters to participate in either party's primary elections. That means voters can weigh in on Boebert's primary run without actually joining the Republican Party. And you can see demonstrated some of the people who are leaving in this chart. The blue line is Democratic registration. I mean, it's a couple of percentage points. I have no idea if it would work. And certainly there have been other reasons the Democratic Party has provided for some of their people to flee the party. And by the way, Jayar, I have to say, to be, I guess, Buzz Killington, I get we're supposed to fight dirty. I know that that's what Anna wants. I don't like vote in your own primary. I don't know. John, what do you think?
John, listen. As far as this leaving the party to be unaffiliated so you can vote against Boebert, I thought I was going to be the one to have to say it. I hate that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
I mean,
don't like
do
it.
Idea. You're not breaking the law or anything.
No.
But
yeah, it's not morally wrong or any of that stuff, or even legally any of that stuff. I just don't like it because, yeah, it's dirty tricks. I get it. But the thing is that's the point of discussing who these folks are. So maybe the folks that are following her can realize the type of garbage person that they're actually trailing behind and doing the bidding of, and what their real objective is. I think whenever you're right about topics, which I believe we are, that wins out, even if people don't hear it right away. But flipping over and trying to then sabotage the primaries to get rid of her, that means it can be done the other way too.
Yeah.
And by dishonest people.
I know, and most people in the chat seem to be disagreeing with me. Not Sure says, John, you do you. Leave the dark side to those that can know it. First of all, look at my lack of control over what I eat. I would fall to the dark side instantly, by the way. I would go right for it, like in The Last Jedi. But anyway, and I get it. Use the tactics you're going to use or whatever. But, when I say that the Republican Party liked to pretend that they cared about democracy as long as they had a white race-based demographic advantage, and as soon as they feel like that's being challenged, they don't care at all about democracy whatsoever. I do. I believe that we should have, as much as possible, an open, fair, actual democracy. Now, we don't. And this, by the way, is the 100th worst thing about our democracy. And it ain't the top of the list or anything. But yeah, I want her to be beat either by another Republican because she's terrible and won't accomplish anything, or more importantly, by a Democrat who will present some sort of alternative to her madness. That I think would be ideal. We're probably not going to get that.
Yeah,
Final
I
thought.
understand people's desire to want to do something, anything possible because of how dire it is. But again, they can do it too. And in fact, that's done from dishonest, horrible people versus folks that maybe want something to go better to do it. It's just, it crosses over both ways. And now we have a battle over who's going to pull the dirtier tricks, which again, I know Republicans do. But this particular one, I don't know. That means they could do it and sabotage someone that's very much progressive or very much is someone that's going to help constituents. Now we're screwed in another way. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to take our first break. We come back. We got a lot more to talk about. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Sometimes I wish these social breaks were like 6 minutes. But anyway, we got important stuff to get to, so don't go anywhere. We're launching into this.
About the actor, I'm just saying, what are the White House going to do now? They're going to put Tom Cruise out to talk inflation? Is this where we're going?
You get it? Because like Matthew McConaughey is talking about gun control, and he's just an actor. He doesn't know about guns. You should only bring on people with relevant issue-based expertise, like when Jesse Waters had Pauly D on to talk about inflation. Seriously, inflation of all things. I don't know Pauly D. Maybe he knows a lot about the economy or whatever. It doesn't seem like that's his main appeal. But what Fox News wants is, they, just like Trump, they desperately want stars. They desperately want Hollywood. And they will bring them on. They'll bring on James Woods, and they'll bring on Dean Cain, and they'll bring on Stacey Dash. It's kind of pathetic, the best that they can do, but they will do that when they can. And the issue that they have with what McConaughey had to say isn't that he's a Hollywood star, it's that it was effective. And we want to give you just a taste of what it was like with this.
Invest in mental health care. We need safer schools. We need to restrain sensationalized media coverage. We need to restore our family values. We need to restore our American values. And we need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them. These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations to our nation, states, communities, schools, and homes. Responsible gun owners are fed up with the Second Amendment being abused and hijacked by some deranged individuals. These regulations are not a step back. They're a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment.
Okay, so maybe Matthew McConaughey is just an actor. Maybe he doesn't have expertise, but he communicated effectively. And it was so effective that honestly, maybe Jesse Waters aside, maybe Tucker didn't like it, the hacks didn't like it, but the newsy people on Fox did have to admit that he came across as pretty reasonable. Take a look at this.
Really interesting to hear him say there, someone from Hollywood, calling to restore our family values in the wake of that mass shooting at that elementary school in Texas.
Real impassioned plea there, and I think probably the best presentation that we've seen from that podium in an awfully long time. He is a part of Hollywood, but he's a Texas native, a Uvalde native, very down-to-earth guy. I think that was an impassioned plea. Driven by he and his wife and the visit to Uvalde and what they heard firsthand and all of those stories and all of that, the people that those kids and those teachers were going to be. Really, in the structure of that presentation, as you mentioned, was as good as it gets.
So look, those people might not be as influential on Fox News as whatever Jesse Waters is supposed to be. But I think that they have a more accurate read of what people think. Gun owners at large are not as unreasonable as the NRA, as pro-gun hosts. We know that because we know what the polls say on things like comprehensive background checks, the assault weapons ban, raising the age to buy these sorts of weapons. the waiting period, all of that. Most gun owners are perfectly fine with those sorts of things. It's their so-called leaders that are the unreasonable ones. JR, what do you make of all this? You muted, buddy.
What sucks is we're talking about this whole celebrity thing, and these Democrats are using these celebrities to make these points. Again, like you said, this happens across the board. The problem is now is usually this happens with politicians for empty reasons, for photo ops, and be like, look, I was hanging out with Matthew McConaughey, so you guys should vote for me. Instead, he says something, and now because other entities want him to shut up and get back to acting, just like they say to athletes to get back to dribbling. So they're mad at Matthew McConaughey for actually saying something that would be effective, because now we have to have the conversation. Again, one that they don't want to have. Open it up. If Matthew McConaughey is such an idiot and doesn't know what he's talking about, or the things that he's saying are so radical, hey, push back. Say, you know what this dummy actor doesn't know? And tell me all the things that are reasons why we shouldn't care about 19 children that were massacred, dismembered by this gun, to where they're unrecognizable. So one more thing about these celebrities in the White House. You know, Trump had Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, Kid Rock. Weird, because they showed up and Kim Kardashian actually pushed him to change policies on incarcerated folks and got some folks released. I remember that. Weird. It's crazy how once this guy can do it, they're okay with it. I got more. John Voight is a well-known conservative actor. He's Hollywood, but they love him. Dr. Oz just won his primary challenge backed by Donald Trump. That guy was a TV host for decades. This dude is exactly, it's what they're about. And lastly, I'm sorry to go on this long, Donald effing Trump. He was a game show host for years. Actually, remember in Home Alone 2, he made a cameo in Home Alone 2 because they shot one scene in Trump's Plaza Hotel. He forced them, if you're gonna use my hotel, you gotta give me a cameo. This guy can't wait to get in front of a camera on a movie because he's also the same thing, except he's not a very good actor. He has to get bully his way onto sets rather than actually have something behind him. Please spare me with the BS about how they're using actors for their political purposes when that's all conservatives want to do. They just usually can't.
I'm going to blow your mind. I was Googling Ronald Reagan, and most people don't know this, but he was an actor too. No, they're so desperate. They're so please put me in a movie. Please let me go to the Oscars. Please. I want to hang out with the cool, shiny people, please. And you know why they feel that way? Because everybody feels that way. Everybody would like some famous people to agree with them and think that they're awesome. That's reasonable. Stop pretending that you don't, Fox. It's entirely transparent, and it makes you look even more pathetic than you look when you have someone like James Woods on your show. That said, I want to turn now to a little bit more of Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey followed up his speech at the White House, going on to Fox News to be interviewed about this. And in that, he made some good points, including rebutting a fairly common talking point on the right. Take a look at this.
I've been talking to so many that are gun owners, that own AR-15s, that are responsible gun owners. And I hear so many of them saying, yeah, pause after purchase. I like that idea. Hey, 18 to 21 for that AR-15 style rifle? Yeah, because you know what the difference is, and the argument would be, well, at 18 go in the military. Well, they're going to the military with a intent and purpose, all right? And even going to the military, it's like over a week of training before they're ever putting a live round into that semi-automatic, all right? That's with intention and purpose. We're talking about it here in the civil society to be able to go purchase that kind of weapon and then that afternoon do what you will with it. I think we could be more responsible than that. Yes, sir, I do.
That's a pretty good talking point. We have recently heard in response to the raising of the age, well, you can go into the military. No, he makes a very good point. And you would be trained way more than most responsible gun owners will be trained for the entirety of their life. You'll receive more training in the first week. You will be taught exactly how to use that weapon under what circumstances. And by the way, to get into the military, they do some background checks, by the way. Did you know that? So the point is terrible in a lot of different ways. And honestly, I hadn't heard anyone really articulate it as well as Matthew McConaughey until that. They're not making the point that they think they're making when they talk about the military there. And so, again, I think he's being quite reasonable. That said, I'm not going to pretend that I agree with literally everything that Matthew McConaughey had to say. And I get that he's again trying to be reasonable, but he had this to say. I think we're being told we're more divided than we are. I think that the veil over the masses' eyes, I think we got the numbers. We got to pull that veil off. Quit drinking the Kool-Aid because we're hearing it from both sides, extreme right and extreme left, and they have the microphones. The masses have the numbers. We've got to take the mic back, kick them off democracy's boat and say, no, you're not steering this boat. And I get what he is trying to accomplish with that comment. The extreme right and the extreme left are so not the same thing. And when a guy's being so reasonable, I got to take issue with that. You say that thing to be the reasonable center, but you don't need to say that. You're already being reasonable. You don't need to throw people under the bus who are trying to pass a Green New Deal or get people health care or make sure that they're paid a living wage. Those are not the same positions as the literal Christian nationalists and fascists on the right. So that's where I take issue, JR.
Yeah, you got some people that said, hey, how about everyone gets a chance to visit the doctor so they can live longer, versus people like that pastor we're talking about who says, let's line up the people who I don't like, who I think are disgusting, and shoot them in the back of the head. Those are the extreme rights and lefts of our political discourse that apparently are the same. And one more thing about the military grade weapons and 18-year-olds going to military and they get these big guns. Why can't they have them on the streets? Well, Adam Kinzinger did make another similar point like you were talking, but he said, I was in the military. You know what happens in the military? People are issued a gun. They're not given a gun and they go to bed with it every night. They're issued a gun and then they're told when and how they can fire it. So this 18-year-old that can run up in the military and get a gun, he doesn't just have it under his bed and then wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go shoot up a school. He's there and it's very much supervised. If you think it's not, you know nothing about the control the military leaders have over the military and the troops. Please calm down.
Yeah. It's not like, man, I'd really love to shoot up a school. I'm going to join the military, get a gun today and do it. That's not how that works. Okay, with that said, we got so much more to get to, so don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be back. Mr. Unknown is saying cancel John for ageism because I don't want, what's it, Dianne Feinstein to be in a mech suit? Look, you're right. Mech suits for all. I think Chuck Grassley, if he loses re-election, should get a mech suit as a going away present. We'll make it gold. It's like a retirement thing. Anyway, with that
I'm
said,
sure
we are
many
running low on
people
time.
are willing to drop their political affiliation to vote for Booty Claps 2024.
We'll see.
Just like in Colorado.
Can we make that a t-shirt? Can that be a t-shirt? Anyway, with that said, okay, let's jump. Oh, geez. Serious news. Let's jump into this. A woman is now facing charges for apparently leaving a weapon unsecured that resulted in a 2-year-old shooting their father to death. You're seeing a photo of the woman facing the charges right now, Marie Ayala. The 28-year-old Florida mother was on probation for child neglect, has now been charged in her husband's death after authorities allege that her 2-year-old son found an unsecured handgun and fatally shot his dad in the back. This is Reggie Mabry, 26-year-old, was shot while playing a video game. Orange County Sheriff John Mina says the gun was not properly stored. In fact, it was easily accessible, even to a 2-year-old, and the result is a tragedy that no one in this community can really comprehend. By the way, this happened on May 26th in East Orlando. The couple shares the house with 3 children aged 5, 2, and 5 months. She has been arrested and booked into jail. JR, I don't have the experience with young children that you do. I just can't imagine how a 2-year-old could be in a position to come across a weapon, virtually, no matter how unsecured, honestly, at that point, to result in a tragedy like this. It is just so devastating, so needless.
Yeah. Every time you have a peek into other folks' houses and their lives and their home life, you're like, well, what scenario produced this outcome? How is the normal day-to-day happen in someone's life where a gun is that accessible and also able to in a position where once a child gets their hands on it, then just easily fires it? It's not like the kid knows how to dismantle a gun and put it back together, take off the safety, load it, and all that stuff. All that was set and good to go. So the number of things that could have gone wrong here, even without the 2-year-old getting his or her hands on the gun, I'm not sure if it was a little boy or girl. It was a boy. Got his hands on the gun. many other things could have happened with that gun. It could have been pushed off of whatever table or platform it was on. It could have landed the wrong way. Who knows if they have animals in the house? You know, there's so many different things that could have been horrible with this. But then this just happened to be probably the worst outcome that it could have been. You know, someone's leg could have got shot where it's less lethal. But man, again, this is the type of stuff. And I remember some of the initiatives and some of the ideas when it came to gun reform was always hear this. It's teaching people with safe lockup procedures. I can't remember the term of these, but basically safe storage. How does that work? What are you going to tell people when they go home? How are we going to monitor that? What part of a policy getting people to store their guns safely and securely, how does that get actually enforced or actually come across to folks when they go home? You don't tell me how I take off my shoes when I walk in the door, because I like to do it before I hit, the carpeted rooms. Like those things don't get legislated. So this is just one of those things that once it's there, it could be devastating.
Yeah, I think it's an encouragement, and it could lead to more legal penalties. You know, if we find out after a crime has been committed that you didn't do it, that's basically it. You can't actually force them. People are saying in the chat, I can't attest to this, but they're saying that trigger locks are generally made available at police stations. Like, I mean, guns are not toys. Obviously, you have multiple kids. Like maybe the 2-year-old you might not have assumed could come across it, but a 5-year-old could potentially find a gun. And look, it happens, and it doesn't always result in tragedy. I once was at a party as a kid, and I came across in a bedroom what my parents told me afterward was a toy gun. I don't believe that was a toy gun. Now that I'm an adult, I think I came across an actual gun in that. Why did an adult have a toy gun in their room? It happens, people. But sometimes it results in a death like this. And this is why we always say simply having a gun in your house drastically raises the chance, by the nature of reality, that someone gets shot, because that's what guns do. In this particular case, Maria Ayala, she's been charged with manslaughter by culpable negligence, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, possession of ammunition by a convicted felon, and violation of probation. So this is going to be really bad for her, obviously, and legally. And by the way, let's note, when you're a convicted felon, you're not supposed to have a firearm, because conservatives believe that there are some things that should stop you from having a gun. They just really don't want to expand the bounds of that. And this is not just a thing that happened tragically to this family. So far in 2022, there have been unintentional shootings by 21 children, resulting in 9 deaths and 13 injuries. That is 9 unimaginable tragedies just so far. Last year, there were 377 unintentional shootings that resulted in 154 deaths. That is more gun deaths by unintentional child shooters than many countries have via gun violence altogether. It's a tiny little fraction of ours. It's more than some entire countries have, but this is what we tolerate. This is what we're not working to stop.
What you guys think about now, what this kid is going to have to be told as he grows up, what happened to, I'm not sure if it was his dad, but what happened to his dad.
I believe it was.
And who did it? Why is he no longer here? Man, the repercussions and the reverberations from something like this will last his entire life, and theirs too. And his mom is in jail for how many years. This is devastating. And again, you can say, oh, look at these irresponsible gun owners. I'm a responsible gun owner, because they like to push that at the beginning of every time they say, hey, responsible law-abiding gun ownership is actually where we have no issues. If you have no issues with responsible law-abiding gun owners, they're not the ones making the news, are they? We're talking about ones who aren't. That's the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, imagine if some people who were really into board games were going around and killing people with the board games. I'm a responsible, law-abiding board game owner. It would bother me even more that people were doing that with something that I take so seriously and care about more. So a lot of gun owners do step up and are on the right side of this. I would like to see more of that.
Туры Германии. Посмотрите.
Okay, this is Russia. This is
Понятно? И вот это министр культуры Германии. И вы считаете, что после того, как в этом правительстве набор идиотов, мерзавцев, хамов и негодяев, мы должны о чем-то с ними беседовать? Вот это министр культуры Германии, который делает вид, что она переводит, что написано на на марке. Так и на марке написано было про русский военный корабль. Она нас всех с вами послала. Или что теперь нам делать? Опять встряхнуть пыль тевтонских могил мощным маршем советского сапога? То есть иначе понимание никогда не придет? То есть что, инъекция добра закончилась?
Ну да.
Правильно. Считать, что им все можно. То есть сначала они отправляют свои эти панцирь.
So to be clear, what's happening there is you had a little bit of a video of the German culture minister receiving a gift of 2 stamps that had images that, by the way, are on some TYT merchandise at Shop TYT of the Moskva, the Russian Black Sea Fleet flagship that the Ukrainians say they sank, the one that was involved in the Snake Island incident. So she was getting like a stamp and like laughing about the fact that it was a stamp that references this moment that went viral. And for the people on Russia One, that state TV network that you saw there, those hosts were so aggrieved by the fact that a German culture minister laughed briefly that he threatened the Soviet invasion of Germany. And I didn't see anyone on the panel who thought that that was a bad idea. Seems like a bit of an overreaction. Said that because they laughed about a stamp, what was that? The injection of kindness has run out, and we now need to shake the dust off their graves. The injection of kindness. This is a country that is in the middle of a barbaric invasion that has resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. But they're the ones who are being overly kind, and perhaps they need to start invading even more countries. What do you think, JR?
We talk about snowflakes a lot and all that, but really this is the point of that imagery. That's the point of putting it on the stamp. It's to rub it in, because we saw who the aggressor was in this conflict. And many times there's like the thought of, hey, again, that's why I talk about the thundering of the boots on the ground and coming for you. If your life's blood is based off of being intimidating and threatening of violence and death, and then that gets shaken a little bit, which happened in that particular situation, it's why it went so viral. And then people celebrate it. This is a conflict, bro. I mean, there's reasons why there's comparisons between like sporting events and actual murderous war, which we're dealing with here, is because when the underdog, in this case, has a victory, they celebrate, they dance on the floor, and you're supposed to be able to take it, especially since you're so powerful, but they can't. Yeah. And now you have to threaten even more because the ego has been bruised. It's pretty pathetic. It's childlike.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like these guys. And by the way, talking big about how going to war would be absolutely awesome. You do see it a lot on Russian TV. You also see it on plenty of mainstream media shows here in the U.S. too. They love to talk about sending other people to war. You know who wouldn't be marching into Berlin? The douche that you saw in that video. He wouldn't be putting his little helmet on and he's got his rifle and he's going on. He would be covering it from a newsroom. And by the way, the same false bravado again. You see that here too in times of war. So let's be clear about that. Let's also be clear about the fact that, as JR said, they're overcompensating with the fact that this current invasion is going horribly. Would you like to predict how it would go if they tried to also invade Germany? Seriously, man, people love making bold claims. They mess around. I don't think they want to find out, though. Anyway, people make jokes. This is real. People are dying. People are dying literally right now because of that invasion. But to some people in state media there and others, it's just a joke. It's all just fun and games. Okay, if you've been watching on our linear platforms of the podcast, that's it. Thank you for watching. We have more to come, though, so don't go anywhere. Dystopian Dragon, send it a super chat that just says, squirrel. You'd be good in right-wing media because that's all you need to do. You don't even have to try hard. You don't have to be clever or funny. Elaine says, I'm just jealous I can't dance like that. 100%. What's the issue? Like, I had drag performers at my wedding. Like, it's just fun. Why are you freaking out so much about everything?
I forgot you'd had that, John.
Yeah, they were awesome.
I've been changed ever since. I was trying to figure out why I'm suddenly doing drag shows after being at your wedding. It's my weekend hobby now. I forced you
against your will to see it, and you haven't been the same since. Billy B. Taylor, hey Billy, says the line going through the weird steadfast is very uneven. Yeah, the little logo thing. I can't unsee it. Fix your own house, you weirdo. Thank you. The real Jamal says, John, say booty like you mean it. Did I not? Did I seem hesitant?
I think he did, man.
Yeah. Oh no. Mac Bain says in the chat, great. John just made it so that in 2 years, Dianne Feinstein will go around in a battle mech. No. She's going to be so confused. She'll probably lock herself out and forget where she put the keys, honestly. No offense intended. I know we're not supposed to criticize or insult our distinguished senators. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.